Today, we're going to dive into a paradox that is, well, it's literally right in front of all of our faces. We are living in an age of glass. I mean, really think about that for a second. The device you're watching this on right now, the phone that's probably in your pocket or on the desk next to you, your laptop, the tablet on the coffee table, heck, even the glowing displays in our cars and on our walls. This smooth, polished, impossibly thin layer of glass has become the defining material of our entire era. And it showed up with this monumental promise, this incredible vision of almost utopian transparency. This glass, it was supposed to be a window, a perfect, clean, unobstructed window that would let us see the entire world, connect with absolutely anyone, anywhere, and access the sum total of human knowledge. It promised us this frictionless existence. But here's the paradox, the central puzzle we are going to meticulously unravel today. This very same piece of glass, the one designed to help us look out, has somehow also become a barrier. It has walled us off from the kind of real, messy, wonderfully inefficient human connection that actually defines our lives. It has, in a really profound and systematic way, captured our attention and redirected it away from the world outside and back onto the image on the screen. So in this explainer, we're going to trace the story of how that magical window to the world slowly, almost without us even noticing, transformed into a smart mirror, one that reflects not the world, but a carefully curated version of ourselves.
This single sentence, man, this is the heart of our entire story. It is the ghost in the machine. You see, we invited these glowing rectangles into our lives under a very specific pretense, that they were tools for looking out. We thought of them as telescopes, letting us see distant stars and galaxies of information. We saw them as microscopes, letting us examine the tiniest details of any subject we could imagine. And we saw them as portals, letting us connect with other minds, other cultures, other people. Their entire value, the reason we wanted them so badly, was based on their ability to show us what was beyond ourselves. But somewhere along the way, the very nature of that glass started to change. The view started to warp. We believed we were looking out at this vast, chaotic, incredibly diverse landscape of reality, but we've slowly found ourselves just staring into a reflection. And it's a reflection that's constructed from the echoes of our own desires, our own clicks, our own biases, and even our own anxieties. This is the existential bargain of our digital age. This brilliant, incredibly seductive piece of glass holds this profound duality. It's both an instrument of incredible liberation and a tool of subtle, comfortable confinement. And really understanding this fundamental shift, this journey from window to mirror, is absolutely essential if we want to understand the very texture of modern life.
Okay, so to truly grasp the gravity of this transformation, we have to travel back in time a little bit. We need to remember the sheer, unadulterated optimism that surrounded the dawn of the personal computer and the smartphone. This was the era of the window with a capital W. This was a time when the internet was spoken of in these grand, almost mythic terms. I mean, it wasn't just a new technology, it was a new frontier, a kind of digital promised land. And the promise of what that window could show us was, honestly, it was truly intoxicating. The initial idea was just so powerful because it was so simple. The screen was meant to be a totally transparent portal. Just think about the metaphors we used back then, phrases that sound almost quaint today. We talked about the information superhighway, a term that really evoked this sense of movement, of travel, of exploration. Or you had Marshall McLuhan's idea of the global village, a concept that predicted technology would shrink the world, it would collapse distances, and weave all of humanity into a single, interconnected community. And look, these weren't just catchy marketing slogans. They captured a genuine, deeply held belief that technology was about to annihilate the barriers that had separated humanity for millennia. The entire promise was outward-facing. The screen was a tool for accessing what was out there, not for endlessly cycling through what was already in here, inside our own heads. It was a promise to escape the limitations of our immediate physical reality, to be anywhere and to know anything.
So these are the specific promises that made us fall in love with our glass screens. Let's really unpack them, because each one of these represented a fundamental break with the past. First up, see the entire world. This was a literal promise. Suddenly you could use a program like Google Earth and, in seconds, fly from your own rooftop to the peak of Mount Everest. You could take a virtual tour of the Louvre, getting closer to the Mona Lisa than you ever could in person. You could watch a live protest unfolding on another continent in real time. The old constraints of physical presence just dissolved. Then there was connect with distant friends. A letter that once took weeks to cross an ocean was replaced by an email that arrived in seconds. And then email was replaced by instant messaging. Families separated by thousands of miles could suddenly share daily moments, bridging that huge emotional gap created by geography. This was a profound change in the human experience of distance. Next, access all knowledge. This was maybe the most audacious promise of them all. The idea that the sum of human knowledge, every book, every scientific paper, every historical document, was now, in theory, right at your fingertips. The screen was the key to a new Library of Alexandria, only this was a library that could never burn down. And all of this was delivered through what was promised as a transparent, frictionless experience. The very smoothness of the glass was a metaphor for the world it was supposed to create, a world without the usual friction of distance, of waiting, of social barriers. It was an absolutely intoxicating vision of liberation, and we embraced it completely.
So there we were, right? We've got this perfect, transparent window to the entire universe. But then something began to change. And it wasn't a sudden, dramatic shattering of the glass. No, it was this subtle, almost invisible shift that was happening behind the scenes. The very function of the screen started to morph from being a passive window into something far more active and far more personal. And it all started with a helpful little presence, working just behind the glass. This right here, this is the turning point in our story. To keep our window to the world sparkling clean, and to help us manage the overwhelming flood of information, a very helpful, very intelligent window cleaner was hired. And we call it the algorithm. Now, at first, its job was simple and noble. Just observe what we seem to enjoy looking at through the window and tidy things up a bit, making the view more relevant. If you liked looking at cars, it would make sure that interesting cars were prominently displayed in your view. If you're interested in Renaissance art, it would helpfully point you towards the right wing of the virtual museum. It was just cleaning the glass, personalizing the experience to save you time. But this cleaner was smart. It was a learning machine. It started learning not just what we liked, but what kept us looking. It measured the time we lingered on one view versus another. It tracked every click, every share, every single pause. It was learning our desires better than we knew them ourselves. And this is where everything changes. The window cleaner got creative. It was no longer content with simply clarifying the existing view. It realized it could make the view even more compelling, more irresistible, more addictive. So it began to paint on the glass. It started adding things to the landscape it knew we'd love based on our past behavior. And it suddenly removed the things we found boring, or challenging, or maybe even disagreeable. The window was no longer a neutral portal to the world as it is. It was becoming a canvas for a world painted specifically for us. It had developed its own agenda, an agenda given to it by its creators. Maximize engagement. Keep our eyes glued to the glass for as long as humanly possible.
This slide just lays out the fundamental transformation with perfect clarity. It's the before and after snapshot of our digital lives. On the left, you have the window. Its focus was outward, on the world in all its glorious complexity. Its function was exploration, to discover new things, new ideas, new people. The intended result was connection with that outside world, and the feeling it gave us was expansive, the sense of infinite possibility. Now look at the right side, the smart mirror. Its focus has done a complete 180. It's turned inward, to the self. Its function is no longer exploration, but reflection. It's just showing us an optimized version of what it already knows we want to see about ourselves and our existing interests. The result isn't broad connection, but this intense, sometimes isolating personalization. And the feeling is no longer expansive. It's enclosed. We're no longer looking out at an infinite horizon. We're staring into a beautiful, captivating, but ultimately finite reflection of who we already are.
So what does it actually mean to live inside a room where the walls are made of these smart mirrors? What are the consequences of spending our days staring into this perfect, personalized reflection? This isn't just a technological shift, you guys. It's a profound shift in our very experience of reality, of society, and of ourselves. And luckily for us, a number of brilliant thinkers have given us the tools to understand exactly what's happening to us, starting with the very nature of the world inside that mirror. Our first guide into this strange new reality is the French thinker Guy Debord, who, with incredible foresight, wrote about the society of the spectacle way back in the 1960s. He argued that in modern capitalist societies, Everything that was once directly lived has moved into a representation. Basically, we no longer experience life, we experience images of life. And the smart mirror? It's the ultimate engine of the spectacle. The life it reflects back to us is a perfect, edited, endlessly entertaining visual feast. It is not real life, with its boredom, its difficulties, its messiness. No, it's a perpetual highlight reel. It's a landscape of images designed for consumption, and it turns us into passive spectators of our own existence. The mirror shows us a perfect party, a perfect vacation, a perfect body, a perfect life. And this curated landscape of images can become more real, more compelling than the unedited reality waiting for us outside the screen.
All right, now let's talk about the texture of the world inside the mirror. Sociologist Zygmunt Bauman described our era as liquid modernity. He argued that the solid, stable structures of the past, lifelong jobs, tight-knit communities, permanent relationships, have all basically melted. Everything is now fluid, temporary, and uncertain. The smart mirror is the perfect habitat for this liquid life. It reflects back a world that is beautifully frictionless. Relationships can be started with a friend request, and they can be terminated with a block. There are no difficult, messy commitments. Bauman called this liquid love. Our sources point to modern phenomena like Tatsesherjal, or buddy-up socializing, finding a meal buddy or a travel buddy. These are functional, temporary connections that provide companionship without the risks and responsibilities of deep, solid bonds. The mirror makes life feel light, easy, and unburdened by obligation, and that perfectly reflects the ideals of a liquid modern world.
So this beautiful, liquid spectacle, it comes at a very, very high price. And historian Yuval Noah Harari gives us the language to understand that price: attention poverty. The logic here is simple economics. When a resource becomes infinitely abundant, something else becomes scarce. So in a world of infinite information, the one thing that becomes critically scarce is our ability to pay attention to it. And the smart mirror, with its algorithm, is a machine that is precision engineered to mine and consume every last drop of our attention. The reflection it shows us is algorithmically optimized to be more stimulating, more comfortable, more emotionally satisfying than the real world could ever hope to be. It's a personalized visual feast that we find nearly impossible to look away from. And as we pour our finite cognitive resources into this mirror, our ability to focus on the complex, slow, and often unstimulating real world begins to atrophy. We become information-rich, but attention-poor.
This isn't just one problem. It's a crisis, diagnosed by many of our sharpest thinkers, each one looking at the mirror from a different angle. Let's take the German sociologist Hartmut Rosa. He talks about social acceleration. The seductive smoothness of the mirror isn't just pleasant. It feeds a relentless acceleration of life, compressing time and cramming more and more into each day until we lose any sense of deep connection or resonance with the world. Then you have the French philosopher Michel Foucault and his concept of the panopticon, which was an ideal prison where a single guard can see every inmate, but the inmates can't see the guard. The promise of transparency gets flipped on its head. We think we're seeing everything, but actually, we are the ones being invisibly watched through our data, which forces us to discipline our own behavior. We've already talked about Zygmunt Bauman, who warned that the easy connection offered by the mirror paradoxically leads to social bonds that are fragmented and ultimately isolating. And finally, the sociologist Irving Goffman and his theory of dramaturgy. He saw social life as a theatrical performance. The mirror doesn't just reflect us, it turns us into actors on a global stage, forcing us to constantly perform an idealized version of ourselves for an unseen audience. Each of these thinkers saw a different part of the beast, but together they paint a complete and frankly chilling picture of the perils of being trapped in the reflection. Let's dig a little deeper into that idea of performance, using a concept from philosophy and sociology called the gaze. The philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre argued that the moment we feel we are being watched by another person, the other, we cease to be a free agent and we become an object in their world. We start to see ourselves through their eyes. Well, the smart mirror places us under a permanent, pervasive gaze. But it's not the gaze of one person in a room, it's the potential gaze of a vast, unseen digital audience. And this is the critical part. That gaze is now quantified. Likes, shares, follower counts, comments, these are no longer just interactions. They are a constant, real-time, numerical judgment of our performance. They are the applause or the deafening silence of the crowd. This immense pressure forces us into what Goffman called impression management, where we are constantly curating and performing an idealized version of ourselves, an identity built not from an authentic inner core, but from what we believe will be validated by the digital gaze. So when you combine all these forces, what you get is a modern version of Plato's famous allegory of the cave. Now, in Plato's story, prisoners are chained in a dark cave, forced to watch shadows on a wall cast by a fire behind them. And because they've never seen the real world, they believe these flickering shadows are the only reality. The smart mirror has created a personalized digital cave for each and every one of us. The colorful, algorithmically curated images on our screens are the new shadows. They are a hyperreality, a representation of the world that is often more vivid and more compelling than the real thing. But here's the terrifying twist on Plato's story. In the digital cave, we are not unwilling prisoners. The sources describe us as being self-bound. We happily chain ourselves. We love the shadows. We are so mesmerized by the beautiful reflection that if someone tried to drag us out into the messy, complicated, friction-filled sunlight of the real world, we might just panic and run right back into the comforting darkness of our cave.
Okay, I know, this sounds incredibly bleak, doesn't it? Trapped in a digital cave of our own making, endlessly performing for a quantified gaze. But this is not a deterministic prison. This is not the end of the story. Because awareness is the first step toward agency. The spell of the mirror can be broken. And it doesn't happen by trying to smash the glass, but through a quiet, internal moment of realization. It starts when you begin to feel the coldness of the glass itself, and that is the moment of awakening. The beginning of the escape isn't some grand, heroic act. It's a moment of subtle disillusionment. It's that feeling you get when the endless scroll starts to feel empty. It's when you look up from the perfect images on the screen and you realize they're not actually nourishing you. It is the moment you get tired of the beautiful reflection and you instinctively reach out, as if to touch the person or the place behind it, only to feel your fingertips meet the cold, hard, flat surface of the screen. In that moment, you recognize the barrier for what it is. You feel the impenetrable nature of the glass that separates the representation from the reality. That feeling, that's the start. That is when you begin to reclaim your agency from the machine.
So once you've had that moment of awakening, what do? Well, computer scientist Cal Newport offers a powerful and practical philosophy called digital minimalism. Now, this is not about rejecting technology entirely or becoming a Luddite. It's not about tech phobia. It is about intentionality. It's a philosophy that states, very simply, that technology must serve us and our deep human values, not the other way around. The core idea is to completely flip the script. We move from a mindset of passive acceptance, what's the harm in trying this new app, to a much more rigorous and demanding question. Is this the best way to use technology to support my deepest values? It's about moving from mindless, passive consumption to mindful, active use. It's about taking back control and becoming the architect of your own digital life, rather than letting it be designed for you by the attention economy.
So what does this actually look like in practice? Cal Newport provides a concrete, actionable plan called the 30-day digital declutter. Step 1. For 30 days, you take a complete break from all optional technologies. This means social media, news feeds, video streaming, anything that isn't absolutely essential for your work or your life. This isn't about punishment. It's about creating a clean slate, allowing your brain to reset from the constant stimulus. Step 2 is the most important part. During this break, you have to actively fill that newfound free time by rediscovering high-quality, satisfying offline activities. Read challenging books, meet friends for actual conversations, take up a hobby, spend time in nature. You're relearning what truly brings you satisfaction and meaning away from the quantified validation of the gaze. Then, step 3. After the 30 days are up, you don't just go back to your old habits. You reintroduce technology slowly, intentionally, and with extreme prejudice. For each service you consider bringing back, you must ask, does this tool directly and significantly support a value I hold dear? If the answer isn't a resounding, obvious yes, it doesn't come back into your life.
The goal of this entire process is this counterintuitive but really powerful idea: reintroducing productive friction into our lives. The tech world is obsessed with making everything frictionless, smooth, and easy.
But as we've seen, that very smoothness is what enables mindless, addictive behavior. By deliberately making things a little bit harder, we break the cycle of automaticity. For example, deleting the social media app from your phone introduces friction. Now you have to open a web browser and log in. That small bit of effort is often enough to make you stop and ask, do I really need to be doing this right now? It creates a pause, a moment for reflection. It's like a cognitive speed bump that disrupts the autopilot mode that frictionless design is built to encourage. This really brings us to the ultimate bargain we have struck in the age of the smart mirror. We have systematically traded away the things in life that have meaningful friction for the seductive allure of meaningless smoothness. So what is meaningful friction? It's the difficulty of learning a new skill like an instrument or a language. It's the awkwardness of a tough, honest conversation with a loved one that ultimately deepens your bond. It's the physical effort of hiking up a mountain to see a real view. These things are hard, they have friction, but they are the very source of growth, meaning, and true satisfaction. Instead, we have increasingly opted for the meaningless smoothness of the infinite scroll, the one-click purchase, the easy, liquid connections that ask nothing of us. We have optimized our lives for comfort and convenience, and in the process, we may have optimized out the very things that make life feel like it's worth living.
And so we end with this question. It's the question this entire explainer has been built to arm you with. The next time you unlock your screen, just take a half-second pause and honestly ask yourself, what is my intention right now? Am I using this device as a tool, as a window to learn about the world, to connect meaningfully with another human being, to create something new? Or am I simply gazing into a mirror, passively consuming a reflection of my own preferences, seeking validation from the digital gaze, and scrolling through a perfect, frictionless spectacle? The choice between the window and the mirror is one we now make hundreds of times every single day. And becoming conscious of that choice, in those fleeting moments, is the only way to ensure that this powerful, beautiful, and dangerous piece of glass in your hand remains a tool that you control, and not the other way around.